how to reach an avoidant heart without chasing. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something many of us struggle with: how to connect with someone who's emotionally avoidant without turning into the relentless pursuer. It's tempting when someone pulls away to lean in harder, to chase them with calls, messages, and emotional appeals. But here's the truth: chasing pushes them further away. Avoidant hearts don't retreat because they don't care. They retreat because their system is wired to protect itself from feeling overwhelmed or vulnerable. So how do you reach that heart without chasing it? It begins with your mindset. You must shift from "I need to fix this" to "I'm confident in my worth no matter what." First, respect their space. When someone is avoidant, giving them room to breathe shows you understand their rhythm and that you won't smother them. Second, be calm and consistent. Don't bombard them with questions or demands. Instead, show up steadily and predictably. This consistency tells their brain, "You can trust me." Third, focus on your own life. When you're fully engaged in your passions, your growth, your friendships, you become magnetic. You're not chasing because you're not desperate. Instead, you're offering a vibrant, complete version of yourself. Fourth, communicate clearly and vulnerably, but only when invited. You want to be authentic, but not force intimacy before they're ready. Avoidant hearts need to feel safe before they open up. Lastly, hold your boundaries. Know what you will and won't accept emotionally. Boundaries create respect. They tell the avoidant heart you value yourself and expect the same in return. Reaching an avoidant heart is not about chasing or convincing. It's about creating an environment where trust can grow naturally. Be patient, be steady, be genuine, and watch how walls begin to soften one moment at a time. When dealing with someone who has an avoidant heart, one of the most important things you can do is truly respect their space. This isn't just about giving physical distance or silence. It's about understanding the deep reasons why they pull away and responding with patience rather than panic. People who lean toward avoidance don't push others away because they don't care or aren't interested. On the contrary, it often stems from an internal need to protect themselves from emotional overwhelm or fear of vulnerability. Recognizing this truth is the first step in learning to respect their space in a way that actually brings you closer rather than driving them further away. When someone is avoidant, their emotional system is wired to retreat in moments when things feel too intense or uncertain. For them, closeness can feel like a threat rather than a comfort. So when you feel that pull of distance, your natural instinct might be to fill the silence with messages, calls, or attempts to fix the situation. But chasing after them is like trying to push a balloon underwater. It only creates more resistance and tension. Instead, respecting their space means giving them the room to breathe and process on their own terms. This doesn't mean ignoring them or pretending you don't care. It means showing up with patience and calmness, understanding that their need for space is not a rejection of you personally, but a coping mechanism. When you step back, you demonstrate emotional maturity and self-control, which paradoxically builds attraction. It shows you're secure enough not to panic or demand immediate answers, and that you trust the relationship enough to let it unfold naturally. This space you give isn't a void, it's a kind of emotional safety net where they can come back to you when they're ready without fear of pressure or judgment. Respecting their space also involves recognizing the difference between giving space and disappearing. The goal isn't to ghost or drop off the radar. It's to create a balanced presence. You might check in occasionally with simple, low-pressure messages that don't demand a response, but remind them you're there. Think of it like planting seeds. You're quietly maintaining the connection without flooding them with attention. This consistent yet gentle presence helps reduce the fear of abandonment that often underlies avoid behavior without triggering their alarm systems that usually respond to clinginess or neediness. Another important aspect is to resist interpreting their need for space as a sign of disinterest or personal failure. Avoidant hearts aren't rejecting you, they're simply managing their own internal emotional landscape. When you accept this without making it about your worth, it removes the emotional charge that might cause you to chase. You begin to see their retreat as a natural part of their process rather than a personal attack or something that needs to be fixed. This respect also applies to physical space and time boundaries. Avoidant individuals often need quiet moments or alone time to recharge emotionally. Honoring these moments without guilt or resentment is crucial. It's about valuing their needs alongside your own and understanding that creating healthy boundaries around time and space actually fosters closeness. It signals to them that you respect their pace and are not trying to control or rush their feelings. Finally, respecting their space is a form of love that goes beyond words. It's the kind of love that trusts, waits, and holds steady even when things feel uncertain. It's about embracing the tension between closeness and distance without trying to resolve it immediately. When you do this, you create a safe container for the avoidant heart to feel secure enough to eventually lower its defenses. You might not always see immediate results, but over time, that respect and patience build a foundation where real connection can grow without the need for chasing or pressure. When you're trying to reach someone with an avoidant heart, being calm and consistent isn't just helpful, it's essential. Avoidant individuals often have a heightened sensitivity to unpredictability and emotional intensity, which can trigger their instinct to pull away. If you respond to their distance with anxiety, frustration, or erratic behavior, it only confirms their fears that closeness equals chaos or loss of control. But when you maintain a steady, calm presence, it sends a powerful message you are reliable, safe, and not a threat to their emotional boundaries. Being calm means managing your own emotional reactions. When you notice the avoidant person withdrawing instead of panicking or flooding them with messages, you take a deep breath and remind yourself that their distance is about their inner wiring, not about you failing or being unloved. This emotional regulation on your part is like a bomb. It cools the heat of uncertainty and creates space for trust to build. Your calmness becomes a refuge they can come back to, rather than a storm they need to escape from. Consistency works hand in hand with calmness. It means showing up in a way that is predictable and steady over time. Avoidant hearts find comfort in knowing what to expect because unpredictability can feel threatening or overwhelming. This doesn't mean being boring or robotic, but rather communicating in ways that aren't frantic or desperate. For example, rather than sending multiple messages in a row when they don't respond immediately, you give them time and space, then check in with one clear, simple message. Over days and weeks, this pattern of consistent, low-pressure communication reassures them that you're present without being intrusive. Consistency also extends beyond communication to your overall behavior and energy. If you fluctuate between being warm and distant, intense and withdrawn, it can create confusion and anxiety for the avoidant person. By contrast, a steady demeanor signals emotional stability. This reliability helps lower their defenses because it shows them you are not going to overwhelm or abandon them unpredictably. It builds a sense of safety, which is the foundation of any genuine connection. One of the reasons calmness and consistency are so powerful is that they allow the avoidant person to regulate their own emotions more easily. When someone with avoidant tendencies sees that you're not reacting with drama or pressure, they feel less need to manage the situation through withdrawal. Your calm energy invites them to slow down and observe that closeness can be safe and comfortable. It gives them permission to be vulnerable at their own pace without fear of being met with panic or desperation. It's also important to note that calmness and consistency don't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is perfect. It means being thoughtful about how and when you express your emotions. Sharing your feelings in a calm, composed way invites honest communication without triggering defensiveness. It shows emotional intelligence and respect for both your own needs and theirs. Over time, this calm and consistent approach changes the dynamic. Instead of triggering the avoidant person's instinct to run, it encourages curiosity and gradual openness. They begin to see that you're not a source of chaos, but a steady presence they can rely on. This doesn't guarantee instant closeness, but it lays the groundwork for connection that is built on trust rather than fear or control. Remember, this approach requires patience and self-awareness. It's easy to slip into old habits of chasing or reacting emotionally, especially when you care deeply. But each time you choose calm and consistency over anxiety and desperation, you take a step closer to bridging that avoidant heart. You create an environment where vulnerability isn't dangerous but welcome, and where connection can flourish naturally. One of the most powerful ways to reach an avoidant heart without chasing is to focus fully on your own life. This means investing in your passions, friendships, goals, and personal growth rather than becoming consumed by the other person's emotional distance or behavior. When you center your energy on yourself, you not only cultivate a richer, more fulfilling life, but you also become naturally magnetic. People with avoidant tendencies are drawn to confidence and self-sufficiency because these qualities don't trigger their fears of engulfment or dependency. Focusing on your own life is about more than just distraction. It's about creating genuine value and meaning in your daily experience. When you're deeply engaged in your work, hobbies, social circles, and self-improvement, your sense of self-worth doesn't depend on someone else's availability or approval. This independence sends a clear, unspoken messaging you are whole and complete on your own. For someone with an avoidant heart, this is incredibly attractive because it signals that you won't chase or cling, which often feels suffocating to them. Another important aspect of focusing on your own life is that it allows you to regain emotional balance. When you're caught in the cycle of chasing, your mood and self-esteem can fluctuate wildly based on the avoidant person's responses or distance. But when you invest time and energy into your own goals and relationships, you anchor yourself in something stable and nurturing. This helps you maintain perspective and prevents you from falling into desperation or codependency, which only pushes the avoidant heart further away. Moreover, focusing on your life gives you the space to grow and evolve. It encourages you to discover what truly lights you up and what you want from your relationships and your future. This clarity is powerful because it reduces the tendency to settle or compromise out of fear of being alone. When you know your worth and what you want, you're less likely to chase someone who doesn't meet your emotional needs. This balance of self-respect and self-discovery makes your presence more magnetic and your interactions more authentic. When you're fully engaged in your own life, you naturally set boundaries without feeling guilty. You learn to say no to behaviors or dynamics that drain you and yes to experiences that uplift you. This isn't about being rigid. It's about valuing yourself enough to protect your emotional energy. Avoidant individuals often respond well to people who respect themselves and don't tolerate disrespect or emotional neglect. This respect encourages them to step up rather than run away. Interestingly, focusing on your own life also creates a healthy dynamic of curiosity. When you're busy living well, you're not waiting on someone else to validate your happiness. This independence can make the avoidant person curious about what you're doing and who you are. They might start to wonder why you're not chasing or why you seem so confident and content. That curiosity can be a gentle pull, inviting them to engage on a deeper level without feeling pressured. It's worth mentioning that focusing on your own life doesn't mean closing yourself off emotionally. It means you're available, but not desperate. You can show interest and care without losing yourself. This balance is crucial because it respects both your needs and theirs. You're saying, I value you, but I value myself too. This message is far more compelling than any amount of chasing or pleading. In the end, focusing on your own life is a form of self-love and empowerment. It's about being the person you want to attract, not trying to change someone else. When you do this, you create a magnetic energy that draws avoidant hearts closer naturally. You become a confident, complete person who others want to be around and who isn't dependent on anyone else's approval or presence to feel whole. When it comes to reaching an avoidant heart, communication is a delicate dance. One of the most important things to understand is that while vulnerability is key to connection, timing is everything. It's not about forcing intimacy or unloading your deepest feelings too soon. Instead, it's about communicating vulnerably, but only when invited. This means recognizing when the other person is ready and creating a safe space where openness can be met with understanding rather than fear or withdrawal. Avoidant individuals often have a complex relationship with vulnerability. For many, being vulnerable feels risky, like exposing a part of themselves that could be judged, rejected, or overwhelmed. Their instinct is often to pull away when emotions get too intense, not because they don't care, but because vulnerability triggers their defense mechanisms. So when you want to reach their heart, pushing vulnerability too soon or too forcefully can actually backfire and increase their need to retreat. Communicating vulnerably when invited means paying close attention to the signals your avoidant partner gives you. These signals might be subtle, like a moment of softness in their voice, a brief disclosure about their feelings, or a willingness to stay present during an emotional conversation. When you notice these openings, that's your moment to gently share your own feelings with honesty and authenticity. You're showing them that it's safe to be open by modeling it yourself, but you're doing so in a way that respects their pace and readiness. It's important to approach vulnerability with clarity and calmness. When you share your emotions, avoid overwhelming them with too much information at once or dramatizing the situation. Instead, speak from a place of grounded self-awareness. For example, you might say something like, "I feel a little unsure about where we stand, and I wanted to share that with you because I care about us." This kind of communication is clear, honest, and inviting rather than demanding or blaming. Another key part of this approach is listening deeply when they do open up. Avoidant people may test the waters by revealing a small piece of themselves. Your response in those moments matters immensely. Respond with empathy and patience, not criticism or impatience. When they feel heard and accepted, they're more likely to continue lowering their walls over time. Setting this kind of communication pattern takes practice and self-awareness. You have to be comfortable with holding your own emotions and not needing immediate reassurance or resolution. Vulnerability is about being authentic and transparent without relying on the other person to fix or validate your feelings. When you embody this independence, it reduces the pressure on the avoidant partner, making it easier for them to engage without feeling trapped. It's also crucial to avoid using vulnerability as a tool for manipulation or testing. Authentic vulnerability is about connection, not control. If you find yourself using your emotions to provoke a response or prove a point, it can push the avoidant person further away. Instead, approach vulnerability as a gift, something you offer freely in the hope of deepening mutual understanding. Over time, as you communicate vulnerably in this respectful, invited way, the avoidant person learns that intimacy doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming. They begin to experience safety and trust instead of anxiety and fear. This gradual process can open doors to deeper emotional connection and a more fulfilling relationship. Remember, the goal isn't to rush intimacy, but to create a space where it can unfold naturally and comfortably. Vulnerability, when timed and expressed well, becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. It invites avoidant hearts to step closer without feeling pressured or exposed too soon. By honoring their pace and responding with empathy, you nurture a connection that's both genuine and sustainable. Holding your boundaries when engaging with an avoidant heart is one of the most empowering and necessary steps you can take. Boundaries aren't walls to keep others out. They're clear signals about what you will and won't accept emotionally, physically, and mentally. When you establish and maintain healthy boundaries, you communicate to the avoidant person and to yourself that your needs matter and that you deserve respect. This, in turn, creates an environment where connection can grow based on mutual understanding rather than imbalance or compromise. People with avoidant tendencies often struggle with closeness because of fear of being overwhelmed, controlled, or losing their independence. Sometimes, this leads them to test boundaries or push limits to create distance. Without clear boundaries, you risk being pulled into a cycle of chasing, apologizing, or tolerating behaviors that don't serve you. Holding your boundaries means you don't allow the relationship to become one-sided or emotionally draining. You protect your well-being by knowing when to say yes and when to say no. Holding boundaries also sets a standard for how you expect to be treated. It signals that your time, emotions, and energy are valuable. For the avoidant person, this can be a powerful message because it challenges the dynamic of emotional push and pull. When you let them know that you won't accept being ignored, disrespected, or manipulated, you are indirectly encouraging them to step up if they want to maintain the connection. It's not about ultimatums or demands, but about clear communication of your limits and expectations. Another important element is consistency in enforcing your boundaries. It's one thing to set a boundary, it's another to stick to it consistently, especially when emotions run high. For example, if you've communicated that you need honesty and responsiveness, and the avoidant person repeatedly disappears without explanation, holding your boundary might mean stepping back or expressing your needs firmly. This consistency reinforces your self-respect and prevents confusion about what's acceptable in the relationship. Boundaries also help you avoid losing yourself in the process of trying to reach the avoidant heart. It's easy to become consumed by their emotional needs, fears, and defenses, sometimes at the cost of your own identity. By holding your boundaries, you maintain your sense of self and ensure that the relationship is a space where both partners feel valued and balanced. This balance is attractive to avoidant individuals because it reduces pressure and creates a healthier, more sustainable connection. It's important to recognize that holding boundaries doesn't mean you're being rigid or unloving. In fact, boundaries are an act of love, both for yourself and for the other person. They create clarity and safety, which are essential for trust to develop. When boundaries are clear, the avoidant person knows what to expect and can engage with you on terms that feel manageable. This reduces their anxiety and opens the door to deeper connection over time. Learning to hold boundaries also requires courage and self-awareness. You might feel tempted to soften or ignore your limits out of fear of losing the relationship or hurting the other person's feelings. But compromising your boundaries often leads to resentment and emotional burnout. By contrast, standing firm in your boundaries helps you build confidence and teaches the avoidant partner that emotional safety comes with mutual respect. In practical terms, holding boundaries might look like clearly communicating your needs and following through with consequences if those needs aren't met. It could mean limiting how often you initiate contact, refusing to tolerate dismissive behavior, or prioritizing your own emotional health by seeking support outside the relationship. The specifics vary depending on the situation, but the core principle is the same: you are in charge of your emotional well-being and will not settle for less than you deserve. Ultimately, holding your boundaries is a powerful way to show up authentically and protect your heart. It creates the framework for a relationship where both people feel safe, respected, and valued. For the avoidant heart, this kind of clear, respectful boundary setting can make all the difference. It encourages growth, invites accountability, and fosters a connection based on genuine respect rather than fear or neediness. When you hold your boundaries with kindness and clarity, you not only honor yourself, you also invite the avoidant person to do the same. In closing, reaching an avoidant heart without chasing isn't about changing who they are or forcing them to open up on your timeline. It's about cultivating patience, respect, and a deep sense of confidence in yourself. By respecting their space, being calm and consistent, focusing on your own life, communicating vulnerably when invited, and holding your boundaries, you create the conditions for trust and connection to naturally unfold. Remember, true connection grows in an environment where both people feel safe, valued, and free to be themselves. Thank you all for taking the time to listen today. I hope these insights help you navigate your relationships with greater ease and confidence. Remember, your worth is not determined by anyone else's willingness to engage. It's inherent and undeniable. Wishing you all the best on your journey toward healthy, fulfilling connections. Thank you again, and take care.